Hi, this is Gayle with BERNINA of Naperville, and welcome to our second lesson in the BERNINA Software Building Blocks. Now, in case you don't know what this is, BERNINA Software Building Blocks is put together by BERNINA of America with everybody's favorite software instructor, Debbie Lashbrook. Their videos live at the BERNINA Skill Hub. And that is a place where you can go and order all kinds of lessons on your BERNINA, the software, sergers, long arms, the whole bit, okay? But you can buy lessons on the BERNINA Skill Hub from your local dealer or from yours truly. Now, when you buy from us, we provide you additional content. That content can sometimes be a project, it can sometimes be something just for inspiration, or something to show you how the person on the street or in the sewing room is actually using the techniques that Debbie is guiding you through monthly. So for me, this month, oh my gosh, I have to tell you is simply this. So Debbie is showing you how to take a picture and turn it into a raw edge applique quilt. She's also going to show you how to take an image, pixelate it, and then make a pixel quilt. That is way enough project. But I am going to show you what I'm going to be doing because I got inspired by what she was showing us. So it's a little bit of a long story, but bear with me. So years and years ago, I used to teach BERNINA embroidery software by showing people how to digitize album covers. And I don't mean a photo album, I mean rock and roll, music, and all of those good things. Because there are some things that I may be more passionate about than BERNINA even. And that's music. So as a little kid, I listened to just everything that I could get my ears on, honestly. But one of my best stories is my mom had this old Olympic console stereo, and I still have it. It's in the workout room. One day we'll restore it or whatever. But I used to have these records and I would try to play them on her record player and it simply wouldn't work. I mean, like, it just would skip all the time. But she would go and put like her Engelbert Humperdinck records on and it would play with no problem. Go figure, right? So finally, one Christmas, she was so excited that she was going to surprise me with the one thing she knew I wanted, which was a record player. It had AM radio. It was a little record player. But here's the real thing. It had Donnie and Marie on it, and that was just not my jam. And I was just like, I will just listen to nothing. Not true. So I go and I put like, I don't know what it was I was playing. I think like David Bowie or something like that. And it just skipped still. And I used to have to stack the pennies on the needle just to get it to not skip. But I probably played that record player for a very, very long time until finally I got like, the Sony system that had like double cassettes, recordable 8-track, FM radio, all of those things. So let's have a look at what I've already created. And I'm going to pick out a few and show you in a really quick way how I did them. And then I'm going to show you some others that I'm planning on digitizing in the future. And then I'm going to show you what I'm going to sew them into. So I hope that you enjoy this. And well, if not, you've always got the BERNINA building block videos to watch, right?
This, first of all, was done with Color Photo Stitch in your BERNINA software. And Color Photo Stitch is something that is meant to usually be much smaller than this. And also, it's generated from a color photograph with lots of contrast and things like that. I've done a lot of really fun things with this. We did a tiling scene from a photo I took in Thailand. We did a software building blocks for, I think it was November or December in 2024, where we did the ERA scene. But this, I thought, why I wanted to do this. And sometimes these album covers like aren't specifically singing to me, no pun intended. as a album itself. It's more about the band and what I can find for album cover art that works more to translate it into a photo, right? So this is Roxy Music Siren. Now, this has a very famous song on it. It's called Love is the Drug. I think we've all heard that. And Roxy Music's singer was Brian Ferry. And I'm not sure, but if I pop up the actual album art here, right, you'll see that there's a lady on the cover. And this lady, you might recognize her. Some of you might recognize her as being Jerry Hall. And Jerry Hall is known for being Mick Jagger's longtime girlfriend, right? Well, when this album was made and this photo was taken, Jerry Hall was taken by Brian Ferry, the lead singer of Roxy Music. So there you go. There's your history lesson in rock and color photo stitch. Another color photo stitch that I did is David Bowie, and this is Aladdin Sane. And once again, there are other Bowie albums that I enjoy far more than Aladdin Sane. But what I like so much about this one was the sharp contrast, the iconic lightning bolt that's on his head here, and just in general, what I could do with this work. And this design here is done in the recommended stitch size and everything for photo stitch. And if we look at the differences here between David Bowie, Aladdin Sane, and Siren, Roxy Music, we can see that our stitches is far more dense, and therefore from a distance, meaning, the camera distance here, this has a lot more detail than this does. All right, so away from photo stitch, and let's look at this. So this is the Police Synchronicity. So a little bit of information here. Synchronicity was one of the first albums that I ever bought over at Kent Mill Records in Bailey's Crossroads in Falls Church or Fairfax, Virginia, one of those things. And oh, Synchronicity. It's one of those albums where both sides, remember when we played music and you had to flip it over and you had like side one and you had side two? Well, this had awesome songs on both sides, except for the Andy Summer song that was like Mother. I didn't particularly care for that one. But anyway, so Synchronicity had this kind of theme of this yellow, blue, and red kind of stripe going through it. And I was making these also back in the day when the hoops were much smaller. But what I did with this is I just took everything black and I made it auto digitized based on that black. And the cool thing that I think happened here is when, even though like it looks like gobbledygook up close, when you zoom out, I can tell that that's Sting. I can tell that that's Sting. I can tell that this is Andy Summer. I can tell that this is Stuart Copeland playing the drums. So it's very impressionistic. And then I did this kind of curved design here just to kind of emulate the look and feel of the Synchronicity album. Okay. Oh boy, this one is getting into something that truly touches my heart and for multiple different reasons. I cannot tell you what the band Duran Duran has meant for me through the years. So, first of all, Duran Duran taught me about fashion, they taught me about art, they taught me about makeup, hair, all kinds of stuff. And one of the things, and this might be, I mean, some of you, I want you stop clutching your pearls, get over your bad self here. But this album cover was designed by Patrick Nagel. And Patrick Nagel was a graphic artist, and he kind of had his claim to fame because he designed illustrations for Playboy magazine. And so he has a lot of nudes. But back in my day, in the 1980s, when we had stores like Art Explosion and Spencer's Gifts and whatever, you could buy posters or prints of Nagels, and sunglasses was very popular. There was a lady with a horse. There was another lady with like a hibiscus in her hair and whatever, but he designed this album cover art. And this is done with advanced applique. And I had this as a file on my computer. And now that we have the glorious 990, I just think, oh man, I could make this much larger. Will I ever get to that level? I'm not sure. But this art gallery fabric matched this perfectly. And this, I mean, this just came out great. So I think it stands alone. I think it's awesome. And yeah, there we go. Oh, yes. After Duran Duran, when I became a serious thinking individual, there was you too. There's nothing like them. Say no more. But this is the iconic silhouette of the Joshua Tree with the band logo. And back in that time, I believe the Joshua Tree record actually had like gold writing on it or whatever. I'll dig it out and show you. Oh, yeah, there it is. Okay. So I decided that for this, I didn't want to really commemorate the band necessarily, so I would do the Joshua Tree in Photo Snap, which is another thing that I'm going to show you in just a moment how I did, but then I also took the font and just digitized it. Janet Jackson, Control album, spoke to me. I don't know what to say, but so this is just, I just love this. It looks just like her to me. And this was done with a program that's no longer available, which is Paintworks. But I could just still stitch this out and color this in with a Sharpie and everything would be fine. But this is the Janet Jackson Control album. Then I wanted to, this is one I'm going to redo, honestly. So I love you too. I think I made that perfectly clear, right? But this is Achtung Baby. Originally, I have all these little squares because the actual album had different pictures in these things. And there was like a naughty one of Adam. He decided to have his picture taken fully naked, and they had to put a little X on the American edition of that, and whatever. But the point is, I wanted to kind of create that, but what I don't think I created is really crisp enough because you don't really see this logo. So I'm going to redo this with the same border, but just on a white background there. All right, we're going to take a look at these two. This is cross stitch application. This is the same application that I used for the Joshua tree. Photo snap. But look at this. I want you to look at the detail of this. Don't you think you can just hear Born to Run or Thunder Road as you look at this Springsteen album? Ah, just love it. Now, Smashing Pumpkins, the Siamese Dream. So this has that song, Today is the greatest day. Okay, I used the cross stitch program to create this, and then I digitized the font that they use here. But this is just something that I want to kind of point out. There's a lot of stitches in this. This took me 4 days to stitch out, and I had to do it in two different files. So we do an advanced cross stitch class that this kind of covers as well. But I just wanted you to know that this little one right here was the one that took the longest to stitch out because it was really tedious. I also have like a lot of loose threads on the back, but nonetheless, all of these things, making them really bring me joy. They really take me down memory road. And some of the things that, I think about is Chris and I, we don't have kids. We have Bonaparte, of course, but we don't really have things that we're going to do memory things for. Like maybe some of you would want to use these techniques. So I have my little babies, which are my record collection from the 1980s and early 90s. So let's go over to the computer and have a look at some of the tips I'm going to give you if you want to create something similar to this for your nostalgic self. Let's have a look at some of the techniques I used on synchronicity. So Here is that file that you saw stitched out on the sample. But it started just like anything else. I bring in a picture and I decide, what size I'm going to make it and all of that good stuff. Now, this one was made way before I had a Bernina 990 and a giant hoop. So the size of the album artwork is a little bit smaller, and that's why I recreated the stripes or the banners that are on Synchronicity. So I took this record and I cropped it. And you do that in auto digitize, crop background, and I pick the rectangle, and then I just kind of did that to it. So after I cropped it, I opened up my artwork canvas, and then you can kind of play around a little bit with the bitmaps. And so I'm going to right click on it and edit the bitmap and zoom in a little bit. And this way I adjusted, there's this auto adjust lab. There's all different kinds of things that they have here. And I essentially upped the brightness and contrast so that all of the black areas were fairly black, right? Like this. And this leaves a lot of detail. And working in Corel is so much easier than trying to work in the prep your image for embroidery, because this grabs like the major contrast stuff. So in comparison to the prepping for the artwork. So here I can almost see faces. I can see that sting. I can see, in there and everything. So I really can get the essence of the album artwork. And if you want to play around, it's just a matter of like sliding these little dials around, right? That's a little bit too much. That's just right. Contrast is cranked all the way up. Shadows, we could maybe get some of that out of there, but really it's about this kind of thing. So now we're going to say okay to this, and we're going to close, and we're going to save. And then what we're going to do is we're going to make sure that this is a bitmap, because I am going to auto digitize it, and I need to have a bitmap in my embroidery software to do that. But now when I hop on over to the embroidery side, I have something that's going to be easier to prep. So now I'm going to take this piece and I'm going to go to my auto digitize drawer. And now I want to magic wand this. And the first time I click on it, it's going to pull up the prepping tools. See that? And I honestly just want black. So let's slide this down as far as we can. And it takes a little bit to think. Let's do more. Okay, I think I'm okay with this. And now when I click on black, all I have to do is just click on any of the black pieces and it's going to digitize that for me. And it takes a while to do that, but eventually you will get something that looks like this. Now, this was an actual picture taken from my album cover that I have. This one, I got a picture that was already a digital image to prepare. I'm just getting the essence of the picture with this. I'm not really needing to see the details of every face and things like that, because now when I do this and then I paint in with that blue, yellow, and red look, this iconically looks like the Police Synchronicity album. And another one that we can do in the same fashion is Fleetwood Mac Rumors. The first thing that we want to do when we bring any photo in is decide, what size do we want to make this? Now, I haven't stitched this one out yet, but it's on my list. So right now my picture is like 5.6, and I'm kind of aiming to have about 11.5 inch or 11-inch finished squares. I know albums were really 12 inches, but I'm doing 11 inches. I'm, in charge of my creativity here. But I'm going to go ahead and take this picture, select it here, and go up to our width and length, keep the proportions the same. And I'm going to make this like 8 inches because of the cream background. I want to put a little border on this when all is said and done. Perfect. So now if I zoom in here, I do want to touch up my picture because I don't want this writing on there. I might not even put this on there, or I might digitize the font separately. And that's not for this class, because we have other videos and other pre-recorded classes that we sell where I've shown you how to create an original font or keyboard map or do things like that. So let's touch up this bitmap. And when I select Touch Up Bitmap, it just simply opens up Microsoft Paint. And then all I want to do here is just take my crayon, take my eyedropper first, and make it this color there. And now my crayon has that color loaded up. I'm going to make it thicker. And so all I'm doing is just getting rid of that name. Oops, undo. There we go. And I'm going to close. Yes, I do want to save. And now that's been removed. Now, much like I did with the Synchronicity album cover, I can go over here and do our magic wand and click. And I want to reduce this to as few colors as possible, maybe more details. I'm just playing around with number of colors that it might generate. I like this. So we're going to say OK. And now as I do this, I could click on the areas that I want, and I would really want to do this all in one color. So that means that once I clicked on everything there, I can just convert it to black. Or if I don't want to do the magic wand, I can simply just select my picture and do auto digitize and omit the cream and not have that be digitized, and then have all of these just be fill, even the black. And now let's say OK and see what that looks like. And then I want everything to be step fill. So see how some of these areas there came in satiny? Let's change it all to step. Here we go. And now let's see what that looks like. And I'm going to just hide the picture there. That looks pretty cool. And then I might even consider selecting all. I did a Control A to select all, and I want my fills to be really spaced far apart. So I'm going to do 2 millimeters. Or maybe I want edge walk. That's a good one. And I'll say apply. Okay. Well, now when I do that, I kind of think I like the step after all. So let's just say okay to that. And it had like this etching kind of look to it. And now let's view all. And it really does look kind of cool. And so I think I'm going to save this like that. And I mean, what's the worst thing to do? Stitch it out and see what it looks like, right? So I just play with contrast. The magic button in a lot of these things is going over into our artwork canvas so that we can just strip all of the noise out of the photo or bring up the brightness, contrast, and intensity and really have a lot of fun with this. Made another version of the Rumors album using PhotoSnap. And I don't know if you've ever played around with this, but this can be really fun because all it is one color and it kind of works like those old dot matrix printers. So all this is, if we zoom in, it's just little satin stitches that get wider and smaller and everything depending on how the dark you want the color to be and that kind of thing. So there's no photo presenting behind this. That literally has fantastic detail. I mean, that's still pretty cool what we made, but that looks really cool too. So I'm going to close this one and I want to show you one that I did way, 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 way back. Now, the Joshua Tree album has like obviously the band on it, all kinds of stuff, and sometimes I just don't. I mean, it's not conducive to really doing this. So when I'm searching for album covers, I'm looking for things with contrast and stuff. And one of the iconic symbols of the Joshua Tree is actually that tree that Anton Corbin photographed, which is the Joshua Tree. So much like I did the Police album cover, I'm going to crop the unnecessary things from this photo. So I just want to get this tree, and the instinct might be for me to crop the tree, but I actually want some white space around it. So in this case, I'm going to touch up my bitmap. I'm going to use the eraser. I'm going to make it super thick, and then I'm just erasing this around here so that I can make this a little bit squarer. There we go. Now I'm going to close and save. And now I can crop. Okay, that looks pretty good, right? So now the cool thing about PhotoSnap, which is this icon right here, is that when we select PhotoSnap, it just immediately makes it something. So if we look at this, we can see we sort of got the essence of it, right? But I'm going to undo because this picture is also a little smaller than I want. When we crop an image in this program, we still have the perimeter of the original design, so it's hard to like get this exactly the right size there. But this is about 9 inches wide. My original piece is a little bit smaller because once again, back then I didn't have a 990 to stitch on, but we're going to keep this. And now let's go to PhotoSnap and we'll see that it did. I want to automatic center my work here. And we can see we have a little bit more detail now there, right? And that's just essentially making it larger. But let's right click and open object properties. And now we can look and see for our photo snap, we can do coarse, medium, or fine. We can have a light background or a dark background. And we can change the angle. So I'm going to bring my little window over here so you can see. So let's see what coarse looks like or what fine looks like. And then if we reverse the background, what that would look like. I can hide my picture so we can really see this stuff. And then we can change our fill angle. And I did mine at 45 degrees when I stitched this out. I think that one looks pretty cool, right? So then another thing I wanted to do, just in case somebody was, not sure what this is I went into lettering and typed the band name, made it a different color, went into object properties, and looked for a font that I liked. And I wanted something that kind of emulated the font style on the album, and then made it larger and turned it into a step fill. This might not have been the one that I used exactly, but you can see how I created that. And then I bordered it with several different fabrics, and it kind of has like this cute little look. Another album that I had fun doing was this Bruce Springsteen Born to Run. This is black and white already. It's got high contrast, so I didn't have to do anything prep work wise. I just clicked and made it an embroidery design. And I mean, when you see this stitched out in my sample there, it really does have the detail. Now, I did have to bring in the photo so that I could digitize the lettering. And I did this with a triple straight stitch, and I manually punched all of the letters. If there was an E, of course, I copy and pasted that for the E's, but I clicked everything there. And then that was my file that I sent to the machine. And of course, when I clicked it to photo stitch it, this was the fine detail. I didn't change the stitch angle with this one, but this was all pretty simple. And this took me about 3 hours to stitch out. Let's talk about something that took forever to stitch out with a different technique. Some projects require other things that are also fun in our software. So in the Bernina Designer Plus version of version 9 software, there's an application called Cross Stitch. And in Cross Stitch, you can actually do photos. So for instance, I wanted to do this Smashing Pumpkins album cover, and I just couldn't think of a way to bring up the high brightness, contrast, intensity, whatever, and thought maybe this would work well in cross stitch. So much like the Bernina embroidery software, we're going to bring in a design or add a picture, and there's a picture tab. And then you find the picture that you want to add in whatever folder you saved it on, and things like that. And then you decide how big you want to make it. And this one, I made it a little bigger. And then another thing with Cross Stitch Maker is you have to pick what kind of fabric. So you have like fabric count if you've ever used Ada cloth, and there's 12 stitches per inch. There's ones that are even larger than that. And so you do all of those things and la di da. Then you go over to your design side and you pick this auto stitch and click the picture, and then you can tell it a specific thread chart that you want to pull from. Of course, I use isocord. And then you can restrict how many colors you want to use, or you can do unlimited. Unlimited can be a little intense, right? But and you can omit the background if you want. So let's do that. And then once you create it, then you can save it. And then you go back to your Bernina embroidery software and you can open it. Now you can see that mine here is not nearly as detailed as I would want. And this also gives you an option to kind of delete stitches and go in and fine tune. So let's look at my real one that I did. So I'm going to remove the picture just so we can look at it. So I had a much higher stitch count on my Aida cloth when I did this cross stitch design. I removed a lot of the white background, so I stitched this on white fabric. And then I made the Smashing Pumpkin Siamese Dream here in a font rather than trying to do that in cross stitch. Now, let's look at the stitch count on this. It's 108,000 stitches, and this took a long time to stitch. And what I did with this is I split it into two hoopings. So I took like, this has like maybe 20 thread color changes. So I did 10 thread colors and made a hooping one. And there's my hooping one. And then I had another one that was hooping two. So I really didn't have to re-hoop each time. I left it all in the hoop, but the first hooping is only 10 color changes, and then the last hooping is 10 color changes. And that just really helped everything stitch out nicely. But this took a few days because there were a lot of stitches in this design. But it was fun, and I think the result is pretty awesome looking. And just because I know you're wondering, I'm not going to take you through every steps in this. This is just a inspiration thing, but if you are interested, you can sign up for our pre-recorded advanced cross stitch course. For those of you that aren't quite ready to do something with the cross stitch app, Photo Stitch, which is in our auto digitize folder, is a nice alternative. So for instance, you can see this is the Aladdin Sane album cover, and this is one click photo stitch, and then I added a little satin stitch border around it. So basically, you take the picture and then you say color photo stitch, and then I let the software kind of generate the stitches and you can decide what you want to keep, what you don't want to keep, all of that good stuff. And just like in the cross stitch software, we can pick our thread chart and things like that. So if we go to matching method, we can say add thread chart colors to the palette, and we select our thread chart, which is going to be the isocord. And then we have 7 colors. We can also like say, well, I want to use all 15 colors. We can apply that and see, how that looks or changes. I can move it over here and you can see, I think I played around with my original one. I kind of played around and was like at maybe 10 colors. But you just keep kind of going for it, right? And then once you have something that you like, you can also remove certain stitches. I didn't want that black border, so I deleted that, for instance. I mean, and they both look pretty good. It's just that there were some details on one and not the other, but I worked a little bit longer on generating this one than I did on this one. Now, with Photo Stitch, another thing is that it doesn't want to make super huge images or embroidery designs. So this one is about the optimum size here. This is about just under 6 by 6, right? So I was doing a album cover. I'll go ahead and open this one. And this one is Siren. And Siren is a Roxy Music album cover. And this is like that impression of that album cover. Now, what I want to show you is if I go over here and I bring this David Bowie in here, see, this is how much denser and everything this looks. And that's honestly because this was supposed to be about that size, but I decided I wanted to see what it would look like if I made it larger, knowing that the software will not let me generate something that large. So it's just a matter of playing around with it. And I got this to look a little bit richer simply by putting embroidering this on a richer blue kind of brings that tone through. So it's all about being creative, it's all about playing around, and it certainly is about patience for some of these. Now, sometimes I really want to commemorate a band, but maybe their my favorite album isn't the one that I'm digitizing. And honestly, it's because I'm searching for that contrast, brightness, intensity, and all of that, right? But I do love Under Pressure, and Under Pressure is on Queen's Hot Space album. So, what I would really like to do with this one is I'm not going to digitize the red, blue, green, and yellow. I'm going to piece that with solid fabric. So, all I'm going to digitize is Freddie's silhouette, um, Roger Taylor's silhouette, Brian May, and John Deacon. Okay. So, this is one where we don't have to do too much work with because we have a pretty contrasty thing already. So I'm going to go to my auto digitize drawer and I'm going to do magic wand for this. And I'm going to click on the photo. And then I will have to play around a little bit with this because you can see here John Deacon is missing some of his face. Um, Roger and Brian are missing their chin. So we're going to just move our sliders a little bit until we get a composition that we like. And also remember, if this doesn't work so well, we also have that art canvas side we can play with. I think that one might be okay. Now, in this case, we're still missing a little bit of the elements. But what we can also do there is just bring back our original photo and manually digitize like John's lips and chin and that kind of thing. So what I did when I created my guys here is I prepped this and magic wand most of the stuff. Then when they were missing their chins, I brought my original photo back and just did my left click, left click, right click around the mouth, the chin, and stuff. And I still have that to do over here on Roger Taylor. So let's do this. And like, here's a funny tidbit of trivia. Do you know that Roger Taylor, the drummer from Queen, is not the same Roger Taylor that is the drummer for Duran Duran? So we've got Roger Taylor from Queen, great drummer, awesome drummer. And then the very shy, very awesome drummer, Roger Taylor of Duran Duran. And now I'm also getting on a tangent here because there were three Taylors in Duran Duran: John Taylor, Andy Taylor, and Roger Taylor. No relation. All right, on with the chin. So I go to our digitizing drawer. I'm going to pick the pink color and I'm going to do a closed object tool and I'm picking my step fill. And so we're just going to go around here and make a little nose. Okay. And now a little mouth. And now let's hide our photo, view all. There we go. Now I accidentally turned all of them pink, but I'm not too worried about that. I'm gonna just, I have to bring my photo back because I can't remember. So Freddie is navy blue. There we go. And Roger is pink. John is red. And Brian is gray. There we go. Now we're good. And this is the kind of thing where I might waffle just a little bit because let's rearrange. Let's add Roger's lips and chin with Roger there. There we go. I don't think I'm going to write Queen Hot Space on this. I think this is pretty iconic, and I don't think we need to know this. But once again, this is where we could practice some of our lettering skills when we do this. Speaking of Duran Duran, I happen to do this album cover, which I love. This one was really fun. This is one of the first ones I did. This item is only about 6 inches square. Um, and I would do this one again larger, I think. This is one where it's kind of advanced applique, but I did it manually. So I started off, the base of my applique is actually the lady's face and shoulder and everything. So that's the base. Then I added the fabric for the dress. Then the hair was appliqued, that piece. So you can see with this one, it's very similar to how Debbie approached the cat, except I didn't do raw edge applique. I'm doing the satin stitching. And then I appliqued the border of the album here. And then the rest was just digitizing the font, digitizing the name of the album with the little shadow pieces underneath. Then it was adding the earrings and and then the different orders. So I had this little clavicle straight stitching that I did, and the hair details. It's hard to see in the picture, but there are these little lines in the picture that are just little light pieces to show movement in the hair. And I just, this was just really fun. And I tweaked it until I thought I got it right. And then I stitched it out. Super duper fun. Now, something that I have not made yet that I think I'm going to do with Debbie's technique that she did where she took the raw edge quilted cat is actually Madonna's True Blue. So this picture didn't really need that much cleaning up because it's so contrasty and everything. It's this Herb Ritz photo shoot that was just pretty awesome. So I have not finished this yet. I have decided I was going to draw her eyelashes and her eyebrows, and you can see I used the freehand tool for that. And then I was digitizing around the shape of her profile, and then I couldn't decide if I wanted to actually applique different pieces down here for the highlights in her hair and things. So I make a little bit of this and then I stew on it for a little bit, and then I come back and kind of rethink things a little bit. But this is a work in progress, and I will eventually find a way to stitch this one out and be happy with it and really enjoy it. And these things that I'm doing here and I'm sharing with you today are just things that these are kind of projects that bring me joy because I think I like the challenge of everything is so different, like the way I approach this Madonna one versus the way I approached the Rio album cover. And they're all very different, but they will all cohesively fit into something, right? And what is that something? Let's talk about that. So in the Bernina Embroidery Software 9 Designer Plus version, there's also another application called Quilter. And Quilter, I like to use this to lay out quilts, kind of see if I'm going to like something, things like that. And so I designed this album quilt, and these are all 11-inch finished blocks. So my blocks are actually going to go in here, and I'm ultimately hoping to make 16 of them. I have about 9 already stitched out, and then there's a few others that I can stitch out, so I'll have at least 12 pretty quickly.
All right, well, I really hope that you enjoyed this more inspirational um, approach to Bernina Software Building Blocks. And don't forget it's never, ever too late to sign up, because you can buy the codes straight from us. We're going to email them to you, and you'll also get that presentation deck that I'm working from, and you'll also get the presentation deck from February when we did our little embossed towel, or the reverse monogram, or whatever you want to call it. So stay tuned. Have a look over at BERNINAofNaperville.com for Software Building Blocks Volume 2, because that's what we're on right now. We did Volume 1 in 2024. Those are still for sale, by the way, but if you want this program and the embossed towels, then you're going to want Volume 2. I hope that makes sense. And if you're confused, yeah, just drop us a line in the comments or send me an email. But in the meantime, speaking of comments, don't forget to hop on over to the BERNINA of Naperville YouTube channel. It's easy. It's youtube.com/BERNINA of Naperville, and there you can like, comment, and subscribe. Now, turn up the tunes, man. If it's too loud, you're too old.